All right, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for sticking around until 5 o'clock. I don't think I was here till 5 o'clock last night, so I do appreciate you showing up. I'm actually surprised there's more than one other person here, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Today is about updates, Office 365 and updates, a topic so nice we said it thrice. Basically, updates are conceptually different with Office 365 ProPlus. They're a lot more efficient. You can get a lot more value out of it. But sometimes when people hear, oh, things are different, and we've talked a lot about, hey, you're always going to be up to date, some of the instant thoughts that come up is, ooh, where's my control? And that can be a problem for some, especially those in IT orgs that need to manage the environment. So one of the things, one of the reasons why I love talking about updates is to basically, my goal is to get you to deploy Office 365 ProPlus and get as much value out as you can. And the more you understand how updates work, the more apt you are to deploy it, and then we're going to be very happy. It's very, very exciting. And a big reason, because it's new, some people are inherently nervous. So I find there are two words that can generally slow down or sometimes stop a ProPlus deployment project. Let's see. Oh, clicker. Oh, it works. Right? So what if? I've been talking to a lot of different IT organizations about, hey, here's how automatic updates works with ProPlus. This is why it's so great. You're going to love it. Here's how it works internally. And every so often, very often, I get someone who's just an inherent skeptic. Yeah, but what if you release something that causes a problem? I'm like, okay, give me an example. I don't know anything. Right? So then you're fighting, you're up to the limit of someone's imagination. But that's an inherent concern, is what if, with the ProPlus, the new update model, something changes that breaks something that you have a business requirement, can't be broken. That's a silly question. Your business has to run on. Can never go down, or else you're going to lose tons and tons of money. Very quantifiable. So often I find when I talk about updates, in many cases we can get through a lot of the objections about how it works and how you can manage it and how you control it. But there are some that always say, yeah, but what if you do something different? Sure, you can tell me all this great stuff now, and trust me, it's great. But what if you do something in the future? And that's hard to combat, is someone who's inherently skeptical. So then I say, you know what? Great point. So I take a different approach, and that's basically the approach I'm going to keep going throughout this evening, another hour, is how the agenda is going to flow out. Basically, what I'm now advocating is a trust and verify approach. So the first half-ish, you're going to hear me talk about, here's how updates work, here's why it's so great, don't worry, things are going to be wonderful. Hopefully a little more succinct than that, but that's going to basically be the message. So we're going to talk about, hey, an overview about the ProPlus, the servicing and the update model, and then I'll spend a lot of time demoing how the updates actually work. Then we'll talk about the verify approach. Right? So you can certainly, my goal is to get you to walk out saying, hey, updates are super. I'm going to turn them on right away and deploy, and everyone's going to be happy in my work. That rarely is the outcome. So we're going to talk about ways that you can help manage it if you need to. If you need to manage the update process. At the end, we'll go through a sample management update plan where you can introduce a change according to whatever your schedule is. And then we'll talk about some announcements we made Monday about changes to the update model, which is going to help those who are inherently skeptical or need to have that control about how Office change is released in your environment. So keep in mind, trust and verify. All right, so let's talk about the servicing overview, and I want to contrast that with the way things are done today with the current MSI, MSP model, like Windows installer installation programs and patches. So basically, and one of the punchlines is, this is not a sustainable model, the current MSI, MSP. Today, we don't have any slipstream builds. So when we release a version of Office 2013, only this version of Office 2013 did we include a service pack that's now slipstreamed. So when you install Office with Service Pack 1, then you want to get to install all the latest stuff, you have to install patch, then patch, then patch, then patch, then patch. This screenshot up there is from last month. If you install Office, and actually I got a similar question internally a few months ago. Hey, my customer installed Office and then Service Pack 1, then went to Windows Update and hit check for updates. That question was in November, but this is from last month. So there are 54, I think. Yeah, 54 updates that need to occur. Right? So that means I'm going to install Office 2013 with Service Pack 1, then patch, then patch, then patch, then patch, then 54 times. And so think of an operating system deployment project where I'm installing Office and then patching Office. That could take 20, 30, 40 minutes. That could take a long, 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 long time. And also the size of those updates, as of April, was, what was it? Just over almost 1.4 gig. Right, so the total size of updates, of the changes, is bigger than the original installation size. Not a sustainable model. We don't have plans for another service pack for 2013. Heck, we announced 2016 is now in public preview. So this number is only going to grow. And part of the reason is throughout all those updates, may have released, I'll make this up, 5 updates to Excel, maybe 10 updates. Each one of those, 10 of those patches may contain a full copy of excel.exe, but it's compressed. So there's a lot of duplicate content. So if I have to install 5 security patches for mso.dll or excel.exe, they all patch a different thing, then I have to install, basically, I have to download a compressed copy of excel.exe 5 times. It's very inefficient. So this can be a lot of bandwidth usage. So the person who asked me internally, hey, do we have anything like a roll-up, because they're very bandwidth sensitive, and now they have to download over a gig of data just in updates. And so I thanked her and said, listen, I'm going to use that screenshot so many times to talk about the value of ProPlus. Really didn't answer her question. She wasn't that happy. But then I responded and helped answer what she was getting at originally. So this is, I put this up here as a result of a problem. All right, so the new model. Basically every month, every Patch Tuesday, second Tuesday of every month, we release a brand new build of Office 365 ProPlus. Right? So think of a store model, or like an app store model. So basically we publish a new build. So that means a couple things. No more patches, no more hotfixes, no more service packs, no more major upgrades. Everything going forward with Office 365 ProPlus is going to be introduced as a monthly build. Each build is cumulative from the previous build. So the May build that's coming out next month has all the changes that were in the April build, which has all the changes that were in the March build, and so on and so on. And those changes can be security updates, non-security updates, bug fixes. Basically, everything is rolled up, into the build. It's all cumulative. What else is cool is that the update model is now a pull model, where the client itself does the delta calculation, or it actually facilitates the updates, which means a couple things. First of all, WSUS, Windows Update, is out of the picture. Office 365 ProPlus updates are basically moved in product, so it can be a self-updating process, or you can manage it. But basically what happens is the Office client says, what build do I have? What build is at the source? Download the deltas only. So it's a pull model. So while we only release updates, or full builds, and the build is about a gig in size for one language, clients aren't downloading a gig every month. They are downloading just the difference between what I have and what's there. So since builds are cumulative, and since the client's only downloading deltas, that also means that at any point in time, because the deltas are calculated right at update time, you're at most one update away from being current. Because if I'm in an environment and I don't want to update every month, I want to go every other month or every 3 months, that's fine. Or if I have a laptop, I've installed Office, I put it on a shelf because I want to give it to an executive 6 months, 8 months later, and I finally open it up and it's got a build that's 8 months old. I perform an update and it says, what build do I have? What builds are the source? Download the delta only, which is great. Maybe that's 8 months old, but I'm doing one update. And maybe in those 8 months, there's been 8 changes to excel.exe. I'm still only downloading one copy. So it's a lot more efficient model. So again, operating system deployment time. I include Office in my either my OS image or my deployment process. Now I need to install Office when I install Windows, and then at most one update. So as I'm doing operating system management, or the image management, I never need to constantly update my Office image every time it changes, because I'm still only going to do one update. So now I deploy Windows. I'm going for a Windows 8, Windows 10 deployment project. Now installing Windows with Office is a ton faster. 5 or 6 minutes for Office install, and 2 to 3 minutes maybe for an update. Contrast that with installing Office and then up to 54 MSP files. And even if those 54 installs have a 99% success rate, now I have 54 potential breakpoints. Also, there are a ton of controls inherent into ProPlus that allow you to control how, where, and when you're getting updates from. So what I described is basically the default model where the client itself checks, hey, what update, what build do I have, what builds are the source, and then download the deltas. You can, as the IT group, control not only where you're getting your updates from. By default, it checks our cloud. You can have it check an internal source. You can also control when it happens. So you don't have to use this automatic update process, which is really just a scheduled task. You can build in your own schedule. You can manage it with Config Manager or any other tool you want. Also, one of the good news is, another piece of good news, I'll figure that out, is that every change going forward is this full build model. So if in the case there's an outbreak or a 0-day change, and historically we would release, oh, here's an update to that DLL and it contains a Windows installer patch. Instead of downloading the update, we will provide a full build and the client will just pull down what's different. So if it's 10 meg difference, then we'll pull down just that difference. We're not going to pull down the whole 1 gig. So we still have the ability, and we do updated builds every day internally. So the process to quickly get new builds and fixes is still there. Everything going forward is going to be this. Okay, thanks. Everything going forward is going to be this consistent model, which means a couple things. It means you can now wrap change management process around it. Everything going forward. So we just announced Office 2016, right, is in public preview, and I think in the blog article it said it's going to be released in this fall. When it comes out for Office 365 ProPlus subscribers, it's like any monthly build. The client's going to say, hey, what build do I have? What build to the source? I'm going to download the deltas and apply it. Or you can have control when that happens. And also, everything happens via a command line tool. So you can automate the whole thing. So you can wrap change management process, you can wrap automation around it. And so this is one of the taglines that I got from our marketing team, is now you can manage change in your environment via small ripples instead of really big, huge, disruptive waves. And that's huge. So basically, change is something in technology that just happens all the time. And it makes it a lot easier to manage change consistently. Oh, the other thing is Office 365 ProPlus will be the last Office client you ever deploy, because every change going forward is this monthly build model. That's another punchline I say all the time in IT groups. So that's the overview of how it works. Monthly build, client pulls down the changes. Right? We don't distribute the update. We distribute a build from which the client says, okay, gimme, 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 in technical terms. All right, from a compat perspective, one of the biggest challenges that we heard, and I kind of breezed over this statement because I kind of talk fast, is in every build are security updates, non-security updates, bug fixes, or there can be. Right? Everything's rolled into a monthly build. So some people think, ooh, well, now you're increasing my risk because normally we only deploy security updates, we leave all the non-security updates, do it later, we'll roll it up into a service pack. So from a compat perspective, there's a couple pieces of good news. Is that the delta between Office 2010 and Office 2013 apps is the smallest delta we've ever had from an object model and API perspective. 9 changes out of 20,000 object model items. So first of all, your existing stuff, like macros, add-ins, solutions, they're most likely to work. We had a customer panel here yesterday with 3 large companies, TE Connectivity, Allstate, and Henkel, and they all said they had a 98 or 99% success rate of using their existing stuff when going from old Office to the new Office. 2 of those 3 companies were coming from Office 2003. I was really surprised when the 2003 former company said a 98, 99% success rate. And the reason also, in every build going forward, we are not changing the object model or APIs underneath. So some people are concerned, well, what if you release a change or a new build that breaks my existing macro add-in? So we have now over 2 years of evidence that that doesn't happen, because if you release or install the very first build of Office 365 ProPlus and update it every month for the last, 2+ years, same object model, same APIs. So that risk is entirely eliminated, which is cool. And we don't plan on changing it in the future. We put out a blog article that said even with Office 2016, object model APIs, we're not changing it. We're not making any future investments in changing the object model, because our new strategic direction for Office extensibility is the new Apps for Office model and Apps for SharePoint, where an app gets presented in Excel or in Outlook, but it really runs on a web server. It runs out of process, so if you build or buy a bad performing app, it doesn't affect the performance of Excel. It also works in the Excel or Outlook rich client, Excel, Outlook, and Word Online. I think on Monday we had Chris Johnson demonstrate that, hey, it also will, it's coming soon, is going to work in Excel for, on iPads. So now our extensibility story is multi-platform. And the COM API object model, that is only for Windows. So from a compat perspective, this new model of a new build every month, even though there's security and non-security updates in it, isn't going to break your stuff, which has been a big concern. Again, that's the trust part of it, right? Later on, we're going to talk about the verify part, or how you can see if, I'm talking a bunch of crap up here, or if you can see it for yourself. Also, there's more stuff at the end. We're going to talk about what's coming soon to help that trust part of it. From a lifecycle perspective, a single build is supported for 12 months, just like our service packs. So Service Pack 1 for Office 2013 was released February of 2014, which means actually today it's no longer in support. But just like a build that's only supported for 12 months, nothing goes poof if you run a unsupported Office build or a Office 2013 without Service Pack 1. It's just a support statement. So you call up support and say, hey, I got a problem. They'll say, great, update your build and call me back. Politely, more politely than that, but that'll generally be the message. And that's the same thing with service packs. If you want to help manage your environment and you can see what issues are occurring, Office Telemetry, which is built into Office 365 ProPlus or Office 2013 Professional Plus, allows you to track what issues are occurring in my environment, what Office 2013 or 2016 apps are generating problems. And so you can introduce a new build in your environment in a small scope, maybe 1-2% of your environment, and use telemetry to determine, hey, are there any new issues, or probably less, that are introduced because I've gone to a new build. So you have that ability to get some objective data, so you can make more of a data-driven approach to determine, hey, this build is okay for my environment. Or what I like to say is, hey, you can use a fact-based approach to manage risk rather than a basically, well, what if this happens, which is kind of a fear-based approach. So now you can get some objective data to determine, hey, is this build safe for my environment? And telemetry helps you. Tomorrow morning, 10:45, I'm doing another session about Office telemetry and how I can set it up, how you can make it work. And I actually do a couple demos about how you can help manage updates with it. That's at 10:45, I don't know what room, tomorrow. All right. So that's how it is and how safe it is. Again, that's the trust part. So how it works is there's a couple different triggers. By default, which is in my opinion a very consumer-oriented way, is there's a scheduled task that gets created when you install ProPlus. And it basically runs a process that checks, hey, what build do I have, what build's the source, download the deltas. If there aren't any changes, it doesn't do anything. And that runs, in my words, all the time. Oh, it says it up there. It runs shortly after login a couple times and a couple nights a week. So in my words, it runs all the time. So most likely the task does nothing because it just checks what build do I have, what build's the source. And you, as the IT group, can control what that or where that source is. Is that the cloud? Fine. Task doesn't care. Is that an internal share, file share? Task doesn't care. It just says, I'm just going to go check build here, build there. You can also disable that. So you can set via install time or group policy, you can say, I don't want to use this automatic update process. I want to control it. You have that ability. Another way to do it is the user itself can go into the backstage view. You click File, Account, and then you'll see update options, update now. The cool thing is, and this may be cool depending on your viewpoint, is that because the scheduled task is installed during install time, it runs under the local system account. So users don't need admin rights to perform Office updates. And so when the user clicks on Update Now, that kicks off the scheduled task. So an end user doesn't need admin rights in order to go into Office and update it themselves. Kind of neat. So the user has some control. And that also can be disabled via group policy if you don't want the user to do that. And the third way is you can run the exe that the scheduled task actually runs, Office C2R client.exe. You can run it yourself. That gets installed when you install Office 365 ProPlus. It just sits on the box. And that's what the scheduled task runs. You can use Config Manager if you want, just to kick it off and kick off the update process. And again, you're not deploying anything to the client. You're kicking off a process that does a pull. So wherever your client, Office client, is configured to look for updates, that's going to kick off the process to say, I'm going to update to this version from the source that's defined. So you got a ton of control. There are basically two phases of updates. There's a download. Once Office detects, hey, there's a new build, it will download the difference. It'll cache it locally. And then if no Office apps are running, it'll then apply. If there are Office apps running, by default, it won't do anything. It'll just sit there. And at the below, you can see if you have that scenario where the task has downloaded a new build, or excuse me, a Delta, and it's ready to apply, but it hasn't yet because Office apps are always running. Right? I always have Outlook, I always have Skype for Business always running. So my Office apps are running all the time. So in my case, I would never update it. If that scenario happens for 6 days, then you'll see that business bar in any Office app will say, hey, you got an update there. If it happens for 3 days, then you'll see a little toast notification telling the user, hey, you got something to do. You can suppress that also. Also, if you reboot your computer, and there is a Delta that's already been downloaded, it'll just apply when the click-to-run service starts. So I've said that to some IT groups, and someone said, hey, see, I knew we should do weekend updates. Or, excuse me, weekend reboots. And this is one more arrow that they had why they want to schedule weekend reboots. So if an update happens and it's just sitting there, a reboot will automatically apply it. Starting July of last year, we changed our update algorithm. So if you update from month to month, you were using binary delta compression. So what I said earlier, if we make a change to excel.exe, we are only going to download the binary differences of that change. Where the previous, with the MSP model, or if you skip months, if you go beyond just month to month, it's going to be full file deltas, which are compressed and then expanded on disk. The result that we found is, and we said updates are going to be about 70% smaller, and I've been tracking them, they're about 65 to 70% smaller with binary delta compression. Since we released that in July 2014, updates have averaged, each delta has averaged somewhere between 80 and 90 meg has been the average of a delta. Before, it was a lot bigger, so whatever 70% bigger is. No, it's 70% smaller. Whatever. So it's a lot smaller. And so with MSP updates, the old Windows installer, we're using full file deltas there. So the update process is a lot more efficient. There's a lot less stuff that's being downloaded, or excuse me, a lot less bandwidth is being used when you're downloading the same amount of stuff just to get your Office updated. There are two ways to configure updates. One is at install time, and one is via group policy. So install time, we just have an XML file. You can say, I want to turn updates on or off. I want to specify where I'm getting my updates from. That can be an internal path. If you leave it empty, it's going to be the cloud. You can specify a target version and a deadline. So if clients don't update, so let's see, the next build will be released May 12th. You can specify a deadline of May 22nd. So if someone has downloaded a build but not yet applied it because they're ignoring all the prompts or they just haven't seen the prompts, it's automatically going to occur at whatever your deadline is. Target version is kind of neat because it will only update to that version. It also has the effect of enforcing that version. So if someone decides, I'm going to go to a later build, and they have a target version applied to them, the next time an update occurs, it'll downgrade to that previous build. Another cool thing with the update model is an upgrade and an update and a down date? Down date kind of sounds like a bad reality show. So going up or going down is the exact same process. You can specify at the command line what build you're going to go to, what build version number. If it's a newer version, older version, doesn't matter. What build do I have? What build is at the source, the version that I'm specifying, download the deltas only. So a backout, update, down date, going up, going down is the exact same thing, which is kind of cool. It's really easy to facilitate a backout. Last, I think it was a year ago, is when we put in update controls in group policy. So this enables you very granular control of how you manage updates. Now, we at Microsoft have a vision that we want IT groups to get out of the business of managing updates. We want you just to let it go. You're welcome. And usually when I say that, people either giggle or snicker or roll their eyes, not because of the singing, because of the concept of just letting updates happen. Yeah, no way, not in my world. And I get that reaction, maybe not as much of a sarcastic one, about 90% of the time when I say that. And we realize that, hey, not every environment is going to say, yeah, I'll just let office updates happen, no problem. So that's why we offer a ton of controls, mainly via group policy, to allow you to retain as much control as you want. Now, 3M, who was another company that did some case study evidence for us, they put out a blog on our blogs.office.com in March, I think. They are 60 to 80,000 seats, or end users. I can't remember the exact number. They've started their deployment project in September or October and finished in December. Or they got, I think, 50,000 by December. They were deploying 5,000 or 6,000 seats a week. I'm like, pretty impressive. They also are getting their updates from the cloud. I said, that's great. And we were talking to them and interviewing them. And he said, well, why? And they said, well, we had no evidence that we needed to manage updates. So we just let them happen. That's great. Thank you. That's what we've been trying. And I was really actually shocked and happy that a company of their size decided they said they want to get out of the business of managing Office updates. They didn't have the evidence to support, I need to control it. So in my opinion, that's unusual and awesome. But it is certainly possible. And we've got a huge customer. I mean, 60 or 80,000 end users is bigger than most environments out there. But with group policy, you've got the ability to say, okay, I want this subset of users to get their updates from here. That subset of computers to get their updates from there. People in this site, people in that OU to get their updates here or wherever. You can specify, group policy has been around since Windows 2000. You can secure a group policy object with a global group and make sure people or computers in that global group, they're getting their updates from the cloud. So there's one way where you can specify your own trust and verify approach. Those can be your Vanguard group, your application owners, your developers, your IT group, a small subset of your environment that's automatically going to get updates from the cloud. While everyone else, you can manage via group policy. I'm going to get my updates from an internal source that I control. So I control when they get their updates. So using group policy helps you build your own trust and verify approach. Say, users in this group get access from the cloud or get their updates from the cloud automatically. And you can now validate, hey, is that an approach that'll work? Is my network bandwidth going down like I predicted it would, or is it fine based on the amount of people that are getting their updates from the cloud? Is the user experience acceptable? You've got the ability to validate that, which is kind of cool. And then you can then scale up, scale down as much as you want, or totally ignore it and totally control it yourself. You've got that choice. All right, so instead of showing you a bunch of pretty flow charts, which you can download, we are going to go to, that's what happens if you download an update but don't apply it for 3 days. You'll see a toast notification. It's an unobtrusive way to say, hey, user, you have something to do. And actually, we'll demo that. So instead of showing you pretty flow charts, and they are pretty, we'll go right into demo mode. Maybe. Okay, so, and we're here. Okay, cool. So, what am I going to do? So, I'm going to open up Excel, and I'm going to open up a new worksheet, and I'm going to start typing some data. I'm going to make a super secret formula. 6 plus 8, don't tell me. 14, knew it. All right, so I've got a super secret formula. I'm not going to save my work. It's called Book 1. And let's go see what version I've got. So if I go into File, Account, and it says I've got version, well, don't read the whole thing. Well, you can. It ends in 1002. The reason it's yellow is because I have, via group policy, disabled automatic updates so that I can do a demo. So I could normally go to the scheduled task and kick it off. And all it does, if you can see, is it runs office c2r client.exe with /update, and there's a couple command line parameters. But that's really all the scheduled task does. I've disabled this in group policy to do a demo. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to call it via the command line. So I've cheated and put in a command line I'm going to use. Office c2r client /update, and then there's a parameter called user, which pretty much says I'm not running it via the scheduled task. And now my only parameter is what version am I going to. This is so cool. This can be a newer or older version. The client doesn't care. What build do I have? What build's the source? Download the deltas only. And with the command line, you can specify what build version you want to go to. So I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste it here. And now, before I hit go, I'm going to let it go. I am going to start my stopwatch. All right, and okay. Here's what the experience would look like. You can suppress this. You're going to see a prompt that I'm going to go quickly through because I have my stopwatch going. But this is what happens when it's downloading the build from the source, or from the source to the client. I'm just going to close this because I've got my stopwatch running. I get that 10% of the time. Don't know why. Anyway, never affects the update. It's horrible for demos. So what happens is now it's applying it. And hey, there's new, what did it say? Please shut down your apps. You can suppress that. You can force it to shut down. This progress bar interface you can suppress if you don't want to show anything in 38 seconds, including the time I was yapping. So maybe 37, 36. So it took less than 40 seconds to do an update. And my data is back. I didn't lose any data. I didn't save my work, and I've still got the file there, which is kind of cool. Oh, let's see if it worked. Hold on. So file, account. And yes, now my build has been updated, and now it ends in 1004. So it's kind of neat. And so now I can kick this off via a scheduled task, or I can have the automatic update process do it, or I could manage it myself. One of the things I also love to do is just show how do I do a backout. And so what I'm going to do now is two things. I'm going to change my version that I'm going to from ending in 1004 to 1002. I'm also going to put in a new parameter, force app shutdown equals true. So this is the difference it looks like. I've changed the version that I'm going to, and I've added a new parameter, force app shutdown equals true. This is what I would run if I want to do this, let's say, at night or during non-business hours. I want to schedule performing Office updates. Great, this is the command I might run. I'm specifying what version I'm going to, which is optional. If you don't specify it, it'll go to the latest version at the source. And again, if you control the source, you can control what version that is. And then force app shutdown, that just says close all my apps and open them back up. So now, okay, I'm going to go down. Let me start over. I bet it takes another 40 seconds. All right, so this is what it looks like. There's also a display level equals true or false that I can suppress this, but it would be really boring if you didn't see anything, and you'd have to hear me yap even more. So yeah, it shuts down the app, or it caches it, shuts down the apps, applies the update, relaunches the app. And basically, it's not click to run, the deployment technology that's saving your work. Basically, auto recover, auto save is built into the product. Oh, 42 seconds that time. I don't know how late I was, but about 40 seconds to do a backout or a down date. And I went back to the previous version. So updates work very, very efficiently. It's very cool. I want to show you the behind the curtain view of how this demo actually was able to work, so you can see a little bit more how efficient it can be. So first of all, I have a group policy setting that has two things. I've disabled the automatic update task. I'm going to enable it so I can show you what that looks like. And I've also specified an update path. And I am going to a local source, C, Office Source 3. And that's how updates can work so quickly in this demo, because I'm not downloading anything from the interwebs or a local file share. Everything's local for me. And then in that C Office Source 3 folder, when I download using the Office Deployment Tool, it'll create this file path, Office, then Data, and now what I've got here is actually two different builds. My current build and the next build I'm going to. So to facilitate an update and a backout, I might want to keep two builds there. And it'll create a brand new folder, and in each folder is about 1 gig of content, because I only have one language. So basically, this is my source. So if I specify a version, I have to specify one of these two source values, or else it's going to fail, because the other sources aren't there. If you use the cloud, we got all 20, 30, whatever the number of builds are that we've released since the first build. So if you're going to host your update source, if you're going to host your Office source locally for updates, then you have to consider, okay, what are my content management concerns? How many languages am I going to support, and how many builds do I want to keep out there? So each language is about an additional 200 meg. So in a 10-language environment, that is an additional 2 gig. It's quick math. And so you're about a total size of about almost 3 gig of content for one single build for 10 languages. So if you're going to host that internally, and you're going to host more than one build, and you're going to distribute that build in your environment, that could be some storage considerations. So one more thing I'm going to do is, let's see, I'm going to show you what that task, so I'm going to change my time. No, wait a minute, let me do this thing. I'm going to start an update, but I'm going to cancel it. Because what happens when an update occurs is it downloads program files, Office 15, data, updates, and it goes into this download folder, and okay. Once it's done, it deletes all the files there and puts it into this apply folder. And this has been my calculated delta, and all the stuff gets in here. And then if I specify apply, if I close things, it's going to try and do it. But if I cancel, now I'm at the state where maybe it's the scheduled task ran. I've downloaded an Office build, but it hasn't yet applied because I got Office apps running. So if I run this scheduled task, you should see nothing. Because when the scheduled task runs, nothing happens if you have Office apps running. It'll still download a build if it detects a new build. Otherwise, nothing will happen. It won't apply. So if after 3 days, and I'm going to change my date to 4 days in the future, and I run the task, darn it, and I run the task again, notice the lower right of the screen, you should see a pop-up that says, hey, there's some updates. Oh, I didn't hit run, I just hit open. Now look at the lower right of the screen. Okay, that's what happens. You'll see something like this, and the user can now interact with that. Or they can choose to ignore it. Right? That's the challenge of user empowerment. They have the ability, just like I did, to say, oh, look, updates are there, forget it. Every time the task runs, if they're in a state where a build's been downloaded but not yet applied, and it's been that way for 3 days, they're going to see a toast notification. After 6 days, which is a relatively unintrusive way to say, hey, there's something going on. Did it pop up? Jerks. What happened? Oh, because it's already back here. Sorry. I've already interacted with it, so there it is. Now I'm going to cancel it. So now if I run it again, it should come up. Very exciting. If after 6 days, the user decided to ignore it, they're going to get the business bar in, say, Word or Excel. So if I forward my clocks to 6 days in the future, and then I kick off an update. Let me just get rid of that. Did I get rid of it? Oh, there it is. Darn it, don't double click. If I open a new, okay, yeah, that's very exciting. So if I open up Word or I open up a new Office app, when I start to use it, it should say, hey, you've got updates here. So it's a more intrusive way of saying, hey, you've got something to do. If you apply an update deadline, it'll say the deadline up here. So now you have the ability so the user is now empowered to determine, hey, when do I want to install updates? Now, again, in this user empowerment model, they have the choice to never do anything. And that's where you can use the command line to enforce it. In fact, one of the things that I like to show is, let's say I don't want to use the automatic update model. So I've got my SCCM site server here. And what I've done is I've created a package that kicks off the command line I want. So I created a package called Office 365 ProPlus Update. And there's no package content. I'm not distributing anything to my distribution points. Nothing's going down to the client. I'm just executing a file that already exists. And so what I'm doing is I'm running this command line. Office C2R client / update /app shutdown equals true. No version is specified here. So what this means, when you don't specify a version, it looks for the latest version in your source, and it will update to that version if it's newer. So now I'm scheduling this, and I'm using Config Manager to, instead of using automatic updates, I'm going to disable that. I want to control when they happen. I can also control where they happen from. So what I've done in this case is in my deployment, whoops, that's not what I wanted. My deployment schedule, I have configured this to run every Saturday morning. So no matter what, if there's a new update available or not, I'm running a task that's going to check for updates every Saturday morning. Just because I want to configure the schedule, I want to make sure it happens during non-business hours. I can also put with Config Manager, software maintenance windows on it to make sure that computers that miss this window, they don't install it when they come back Monday morning, or whatever business rules I want to apply. But I'm going to have this scheduled so now I can determine, hey, it's running on a weekend, so I'll get it from the cloud. Because not all clients need those 10 languages that my whole environment needs. A single computer may need only 1 or 2. So now I can use the cloud because I can just use binary delta compression, doing it during non-business hours, so I've got that control. Or you can specify wherever you want. You want to use DFS to distribute it locally? That's fine. You want to use some type of DNS solution to find the closest location? That's fine too. One of the things that's coming that Amesh Mansukani mentioned on Monday is that with Office, sometime after Office 2016 is released, the click-to-run ProPlus itself will be more SCCM aware. So we can actually detect, hey, what management point, or excuse me, what distribution points is serving content from me, and I can make my update path go to that distribution point. So that's kind of cool. So that's coming later, but that is another way to help manage your Office updates. All right. Oh, and now about managing updates. Okay, oceans of time. There are basically 2 considerations if you want to manage Office updates. Really, it's where and when. Where is your update source going to be? And are you going to let it just happen via the automatic update task? Use that user empowerment, that consumer-oriented model? Or are you going to control it? Do you want to schedule it yourself? And those are independent decisions. You can use SCCM, or you can control the when, and still use the cloud or use an internal source. Those are independent. You can have automatic updates happen, right? So you're just letting the when happen, but you can control the where. Internal source, the cloud. Independent decisions. So you have that level of control. If you use the cloud, it's great for multi-language environments because that does not require you to download all the different languages and host it internally, especially if you have a large environment and you want to distribute that load to, say, all your distribution points. Let's say you have 20 distribution points in 10 languages. That's crap. 3 gig of content times, what did I say, 20? 20. 60 gig of content a month just to manage Office updates, where the delta might only be between 80 meg per client. So that's one consideration. So I was talking to someone from an insurance company on Monday, and they were asking about how the updates work, and I said, hey, just use the cloud, man. Again, more polite than that. But they said, we have insurance agents that go around from site to site. And I said, well, why don't you just use the cloud for it? They said, well, our network is configured. They had an MPLS network. All network traffic goes from the remote sites through the data center and back up to the internet. So I was saying just use the cloud going from site wherever they're located to the cloud, where they have to go through their data centers. So it makes no benefit for them to have their source from the cloud because they're not split tunneling. Another consideration about, hey, if you're going to manage updates, how important is the where? Internally or the cloud. And then automatic updates. One of the things that can figure out, hey, can you justify, from a cost perspective, managing Office updates? One of the reasons we moved Office updates out of the Windows Update WSUS process, and we moved it essentially in product, is to make sure that we weren't getting lumped into perceived problems that Windows updates have with Windows and IE. The Office updates have been a lot more stable, and so we moved it in band, pretty much in the product, to make sure that we're not being subjected to a perceived risk. And also, we want to make sure that Office 365 ProPlus is really viewed as the client side of the Office 365 service. And you can be as up-to-date as you would like to be. The consumer model, hey, just let it happen, or you can tightly control it. Or you can use a hybrid approach. Right? Some clients get their stuff from the Office clients, get it from the cloud via automatic updates maybe. Some get it controlled via config manager maybe, or however you want. But it provides you the flexibility. It provides you control. It provides you that trust and verify approach. So this big, handsome Yahoo up on stage said, just get your updates from the cloud and just let it happen. You have that ability to validate, hey, will that work for me in my environment? Or do I need to manage it more tightly? You've got those options. So, one of the things that happens often when you manage updates is you get a lot of same questions come up. Hey, can I implement some type of testing and validation process? Maybe can I automate the whole thing? Can I back out? These are common update management concerns. So one of my coworkers, this super smart guy, Martin Nothnagel in Germany, came up with the sample management process, and I've been stealing it and using it as an example for, I guess it's been over a year now. Basically, so what he put together, or what this sample process is the end result, or the outcomes are, the whole thing's automated. So once you set it up, you never have to manage Office updates again. However, you get a 2-week validation period. So your testers, your validators, are validating it for 2 weeks, arbitrary time. You can change it to whatever you want. And then you also have a backout and an opt-out, and we'll talk about what the difference is. There's really no magic. You have a validation group or a testing group, your pilot group, whatever you want to call it. You apply some automation and some time, and then you deploy to production. You can do this in stages. So your validation group is group 1. Then you can apply to more people. That's group 2. And then apply to everyone else. It's really, again, this is not a new process. This is just something of, hey, how do I validate it first? And then to make sure it's OK before I deploy to everyone else. With ProPlus, there's a bunch of command lines you can use to automate this whole thing. Whoops, wrong way. So the overview is, the first step is, this is, I think, the hard part, identifying your pilot group. Who is going to get your updates? Who's going to be your vanguard, your validation group? And then figure out who they are, and then figure out where they're going to get their updates from. What if you want to have an internal source? So your validation group's going to get their stuff from source 1. So you can use group policy and global group filtering to make sure you figure out who those people are and attach a group policy object that defines their update path as wherever your internal source is. So server 1, share 1, which is the very descriptive location. Or this can be the cloud, however you want to manage it. So again, step 1, identify who's going to get it and configure an internal source, which is optional. You can always use the cloud. Step 2 is now identify your production source. So you've already identified who's going to get in your pilot group and where they're getting their stuff from. Now figure out where everyone else is getting their stuff from. That can be a DFS share. That can be, you can map out your distribution points via group policy if you want. You can define it via group policy or at install time. Again, there's no magic there. Define your pilot group, and then everyone else is your production group. And you define the different sources you're going to get from those folks, or you're going to give to those people. Oh, all right, step 3. Now you populate your pilot update source. And there's a couple ways to do that. The automated way is you can run the Office deployment tool, setup/download, and then use an XML file that has a source path attribute that says, I'm going to download the stuff into that location. Now, the neat thing is you can set up this XML file, or excuse me, this command line as a scheduled task and run it what did I say? The second Friday of every month, right? So it's after the Patch Tuesday. So basically, now I'm automating the ability of automating the download and update of my internal source the second Friday of every month. This is a sample plan because, as someone pointed out to me recently, it's very possible that the second Friday of the month can occur before the second Tuesday of a month. So sample only. It's really not nice to do that at close to 6 p.m. Anyway, so this is just an example. So now I'm automating the ability, or automating the population of my content that's going to be the host for my pilot group. And I'm running that second Friday of every month. I'm doing the exact same thing for my production source, except now I'm running setup/download, and I'm going to create a scheduled task that runs it on the fourth Friday of every month. Again, arbitrary time. You can use whatever time frames you want. So basically what that means is, since I'm going to update a source on a schedule, and the clients are configured to get automatic updates, basically every day that task is going to run and say, hey, is there a new build? Is there a new build? Is there a new build? Answer is no. On the fourth Friday of every month, when I update the content, hey, there's a new build. Now I'm going to download the deltas. So you set up a scheduled task to populate your pilot source, a scheduled task to populate your production source, and now you have to don't do any other management. So if you take no other action after that, the result is your end users are piloting your builds for 2 weeks, your pilot group, and then your production users are getting them. Right? So you've automated the process of validating builds. If there is a problem, you get two options. If your pilot group detects, hey, there's a problem, and I don't want this build to get out to the rest of production, but I'm okay to live with it now because it's such a small audience, you can just disable the task that updates your content that would normally run on the fourth Friday. So you take one administrative action, and now your production source isn't getting updated, so when the fourth Friday hits, nothing happens. And again, instead of using, if you don't want to use setup/download to populate the content, if you've got a lot of internal sources, you could use something like Config Manager to deploy the content out there if you want to schedule it that way. And then the last step is, manage the outliers. If there are people, if you need to back out, I've seen a problem and now I need to roll everyone back. You can run Office C2R client.exe via something like Config Manager, specify the old version, and bring them back. So force app shutdown equals true, display level is false, that's no progress bar, and then put in whatever your old version number is. So you're making sure there's a back out enabled, just in case. You can also have this as a newer version, because remember, it's a user empowerment model, so maybe people, they ignore all the toasts, they don't get anything. So what you could use that for is you could also specify a deadline, if you want to force people to get it by a certain time, or just say, hey, I can use standard inventory reports to see who's at what build and target the people that aren't at my latest build. And you can run Office C2R client to enforce that version. So once you set it up, a do-nothing approach will allow you to get updates all the time and validate it once you put all these things in place. And again, it's just a sample. It's not going to work for every environment. 2-week period is very arbitrary. I already found a hole in it. But the idea is to get you thinking about, hey, a similar concept might work in my environment. Right? Maybe I want to get my updates from the cloud. Maybe not. Maybe I want to test that out to see if it's available. So trust and then verify. So this is how it works today. And this is a sample management plan, hopefully to get you a little more comfortable with, hey, how it might fit. Were any of you at the Config Manager and ProPlus session yesterday? All right, only a couple. How about, no one was at, there was a session on Monday afternoon that myself and 3 other people showed up to because it wasn't listed in the program. They're trying to get it rescheduled. So people came in, 3 other people came in because they saw the title and said, oh, that looks neat. Anyway, that was the what's coming next with Office 2016 and IT and Pro Management. So from an update perspective, we're releasing something new starting in the Office 2016 timeframe. What I described earlier is basically what we're now calling the current branch. Every month we release a brand new build, contains security updates, non-security updates. It's a new build every month. We're now offering what's called a deferred branch. We're still providing full builds, but feature updates or non-security updates will only be in those builds 3 times a year. right? We're just announcing this this week, and if you didn't go to the session that wasn't advertised, this might be brand new. So it allows you to get more control. So you could have some people get their updates on the current branch, some get them on the deferred branch. It's just a registry key, probably configurable via group policy. You haven't released that yet. But basically, 3 times a year, a build on the deferred branch will contain feature updates. All the other monthly builds will just be security updates. So if you're in an environment where you can say, and you can listen to me and say, hey, he said there's going to be no object model, no API changes, which is true. And that does allay many of the concerns. However, we have had a lot of customers say, hey, listen, this update model sounds great, and that's what we want to get to eventually. But you got to give us some runway. We can't just snap it on like that and be always up to date. So this deferred branch is designed to help get to a point where you're now releasing change, non-security update changes, on a less frequent schedule and more manageable. The other thing is the feature updates that occur on the deferred branch will be released 4 months after 4 months at a minimum after they're released on the current branch, which gives you and your developers and your app owners time to test it, which is kind of cool. So, as an example, let's see. The current way we do it is every month we release a brand new build. And so I've just named the builds current branch 1, current branch 2, CB3, blah, blah, blah. This is an arbitrary timeline. But basically, this is what we have today. And you can still choose when the deferred branch is available to have some people go on this path. You can switch back and forth, but that doesn't make a lot of sense, and I'll show you why. Then there's their deferred branch. So basically, there'll still be monthly builds every month. Only 3 times a year will those builds contain feature updates. So now you're not always accepting feature updates every month. It's a little easier to swallow. Every other month, we'll still release monthly builds, but those will only contain security updates. Kind of cool. It's what a lot of people have been asking for. In addition to that coolness is you have the option when a new update occurs, or when a new feature update occurs, is just, hey, to go to that next monthly build. In this case, I go from the April build to the May build, which now I'm getting DB2, or deferred branch 2, which gets all the feature updates that were in the previous current build. Or we're going to continue to service the previous branch for an additional 4 months. So if you say, hey, 4 months isn't enough time to test, or I don't want to get feature updates every 4 months, you can go to every 8 months. You're still going to get security updates after that 4-month period. You can make a choice. Do I want to go to the next branch, or the deferred branch 2, or keep getting just security updates? Yes, and basically, basically the version numbers. The question was, how the heck are you going to do that? In my words, basically, yes, the version numbers will be specific to each different branch and what the build contains in there. Specific details probably won't be available until we GA it, but yeah, it's going to be version specific. After, yeah, it won't be available. It's not going to be available. Oh, so the question is this coming after Office 2016? And the answer is yes, it's going to be available for Office 365 ProPlus subscribers once Office 2016, which is just any other monthly build, gets released. So the other thing is, oh yeah, so the changes that are in the feature and update, or the feature updates that are in build DB2 in this example, will get released to production users, or the current branch, or in your case, everyone else in the world but you, on CB1, 4 months in advance. So you could have your pilot group, your Vanguard group, the group that's getting your updates all the time, that's testing things, they can be on the current branch. They can be the ones that test, hey, does this feature update work for me? Will it break something? And now you'll have 4 months to validate that if you want, or up to 8 months. But if you go beyond 8 months, now you're no longer getting security updates. So you have to either go, if you're on deferred branch 1 and you go out 8 months till August, you have the choice. Do I want to go up to deferred branch 2? And then I'm getting all the feature updates that were released 8 months ago. Or up to deferred branch 3, which I'm getting the feature updates that were released 4 months ago. So you got a lot more control, and you have a lot more ability to control when updates or feature updates are getting released. So yes, this will be available sometime. This will be second half of this year after Office 2016 officially releases. Again, just going to be a any other monthly build for Office 365 Pro Plus. You won't need to deploy anything, and that's one of the big advantages. All right, so the good news is that's it, and there's a ton of other Pro Plus stuff. There's a session I'm doing tomorrow at 10:45 about telemetry dashboard, and at the end I'm going to demo how you can use the dashboard to help manage introducing new builds, and so how you can get more insight. And then there's a lot of other content. Some of these sessions have already passed. You can certainly download the sessions. On yesterday, deploying Office Pro Plus using System Center. That was a great one because we demoed how to use System Center Config Manager 2012 to create multiple deployment types to help show how Config Manager can help manage your Office Pro Plus deployments. It's kind of cool. And there's a bunch of other ones that are going to be pretty great. That's all I had. If you have questions, please go to the mic so that they get recorded. And if you ask a question on the mic, you will, if you're one of the first 8 or 10 people, I will throw a T-shirt at you. Or excuse me, I will give you a T-shirt. It's not a threat.